While diplomats whisper in air-conditioned rooms, the American family is watching the price of a gallon of gas slowly devour their grocery budget. Today, the national average hit $4.56. For millions of households, that number acts as an unavoidable, invisible tax. Every extra dollar spent on a commute siphons money directly from essential needs like food and utilities, squeezing the average family until the budget simply snaps. But if you look at global finance right now, there is a glaring disconnect between Wall Street and Main Street. Crude oil futures are actually dropping. Traders are actively betting on peace and driving wholesale prices down, yet the numbers climbing on your local pump tell a different story. This line graph illustrates an economic concept known as the rocket and feather cycle. When a war breaks out or a supply chain snaps, energy prices shoot up like a missile. But when the threat begins to fade, those prices drift down like a feather. The consumer is left paying for the lag. Gas station owners are currently selling fuel refined from crude oil they purchased weeks ago, right at the peak of the wartime panic. The financial pain you feel at the pump this afternoon has very little to do with today's cooling market. It is a lagging indicator of a distant geopolitical shockwave that is only just now making landfall. This map of the Persian Gulf shows the source of that initial shockwave. In late February, Iran effectively neutralized the Strait of Hormuz, threatening any tanker not belonging to a handful of designated friendly nations. That single action choked off 20% of the entire world's oil and liquefied natural gas flow. The International Energy Agency calculates this as the largest supply disruption in the history of the global oil market. The volume of missing crude surpasses the energy shocks and rationing of the 1970s. The United States answered the closure by launching the Freedom Plan, escalating the situation with a formal naval blockade on all maritime traffic entering or leaving Iranian ports. Then, in early May, the military escorts were temporarily suspended to allow for a diplomatic window. In that silence, the global economy held its breath, waiting to see if the strait would reopen or if the gridlock would lead to escalation. A regional dispute 8,000 miles away bypassed those diplomatic efforts entirely, becoming an historic global supply nightmare. Back on the United States mainland, the infrastructure designed to process fuel is being pushed beyond its physical limits. Domestic refineries are operating at over 90% capacity, meaning a single extended maintenance issue or severe storm could send prices spiraling higher overnight. This bar chart contrasts a paradox in the American supply chain. On one side, the U.S. is exporting crude oil at a record 6.4 million barrels per day. On the other side, domestic refinery production is failing to build a cushion for the summer, creating an 8.4 million barrel deficit in seasonal gasoline inventories. To mask this domestic shortfall, the government has been drawing on the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, pulling out nearly 23 million barrels in just 6 weeks. The strain is bleeding directly into the logistics sector. Diesel fuel, the primary driver of the nation's freight network, now sits at a staggering $5.65 a gallon. Delivery networks and agricultural suppliers cannot absorb those industrial overheads. They pass them straight to the consumer, adding fuel surcharges to retail goods and increasing the cost of everything on the grocery store shelf. We are exporting oil at record speeds, while our safety net thins to nothing, trading long-term energy security for the fragile stability of today's prices. This K-shaped chart maps out how households are responding to the pressure. The rising cost of fuel has split the American public into two distinct economic realities. On the top arm of the K, wealthy households earning over $125,000 a year are spending 19% more on gas. They are absorbing the cost and maintaining their driving habits, which inadvertently keeps demand and inflation high. On the bottom arm, driven by rigid budget constraints, families earning under $40,000 have cut their real gasoline consumption by 7%. This is a forced physical retreat. People are abandoning their personal vehicles, shifting to public transit, or organizing complex carpools simply because they can no longer afford to turn the ignition key. The independence of the open road is transitioning from a shared cultural expectation into a luxury determined by your income bracket. Yet hidden inside this fracture is a behavioral paradox. Despite the economic strain, AAA projects a record-breaking 45.1 million Americans will travel at least 50 miles from home for Memorial Day. After years of irregular travel and social instability, the desire for human connection and milestone trips is overpowering financial logic. Households are actively depleting their savings accounts, choosing to go broke just to feel a sense of normalcy again. But there is a ceiling to that resilience. If diplomacy fails and the Strait of Hormuz remains closed through the summer, economic models project crude oil could reach $167 a barrel. At that level, national retail gas prices would breach the $7 mark. This price point triggers a total destruction of consumer demand, stalling the economy and risking a severe global recession. The United States is confronting a reality where mobility becomes a liability, leaving a nation forced to stand still by the cost of moving forward. What price per gallon is the breaking point for your household budget? Let us know.
An investment in knowledge pays the best interest, so why not invest in this channel? Click like and subscribe for more.